Think about the last time you felt truly, genuinely low. Not sad, not disappointed, not had a rough Monday. Low. The kind of low where getting out of bed feels like lifting a car off your chest, where the world loses its color, where you can't even explain to yourself what's wrong because nothing specific is wrong and somehow that makes it worse. Now ask yourself a strange question. Did your ancestors feel that too? Not your grandparents, not the people in the old photographs, your ancestors. The ones crouched around a fire 40,000 years ago watching the dark tree line, listening for predators. Did any of them lie awake in the same heavy fog you sometimes wake up in? Did the human brain always know how to do this to itself? Or is depression something new, a glitch, a side effect of a strange artificial world we built for ourselves? The answer is one of the most surprising, counterintuitive, most quietly beautiful discoveries in all of evolutionary psychology, and it involves grief, social status, a theory about problem solving, a tribe in Papua New Guinea, and a brain mechanism so old it might have been keeping our ancestors alive long before it started making you miserable. But before we get to any of that, we need to be honest about what depression actually is. Because most people talk about it like it's just extreme sadness, like it's the bottom rung of a normal emotion. It isn't. Sadness is a response to something. You lose a friend, you feel sad. The feeling fades. Clinical depression is different. It settles in and stays. It flattens your energy, kills your motivation, warps your sleep, poisons your appetite, and drags your thoughts in slow, dark circles that go nowhere. And it's not mood, it's a state. And here's the part that matters. It is remarkably consistent. It shows up in every human culture ever studied, on every continent, in every century we have records for, which tells us something important. Whatever depression is, it's not a modern invention. The wiring for it is ancient. So let's meet the two camps, because scientists have been arguing about this for decades. One camp says depression is a disease, a malfunction, something that breaks the way a bone breaks. The other camp says something far stranger. They say depression isn't malfunction at all. They say it might be a feature, a tool, something evolution built on purpose. And once you understand why, you can never look at it in your own moods the same way. Let's start with the most provocative version of that idea. It's called the analytical rumination hypothesis. And it goes like this. When you fall into a depressive state, notice what actually happens. You withdraw. You lose interest in food, in sex, in socializing, in fun. Your mind locks onto a single problem and chews it endlessly, obsessively, unable to let go. Now, from the outside, that looks purely destructive. But flip it around. What if that's not the brain breaking? What if that's the brain doing exactly what it was designed to do, forcing you to stop everything and think hard about a complex problem that your normal, distracted, happy mind kept avoiding? Think about what triggers depression in humans, not random chemical noise, usually a genuine life catastrophe. A failed relationship, a social humiliation, the loss of status, the death of someone you depended on. These are exactly the kinds of enormous, tangled, life-defining problems that require deep, undistracted analysis. And the depressive state, in this theory, is the mind clearing the calendar, shutting down pleasures so you can't be pulled away, killing your appetite so you won't waste energy, pinning you in place so you have no choice but to sit with the problem until you solve it. Sounds brutal, and absolutely it is, but possibly in the ancestral world, useful. Now here's the second theory, and it's even older and even colder. It's called the social rank hypothesis. Picture a small band of ancient humans, 20 or 30, maybe 40 people. In a group that size, your survival depends entirely on your standing within it. If you challenge someone more powerful and lose, you are in serious danger. You could be cast out, and in the ancient world, being cast out of your group was a death sentence. Slow and certain, so evolution, the cold, patient calculator, needed a mechanism to stop the loser from continuing to fight a battle they couldn't win. That mechanism might be depression. Think about it. What does a defeated, low-status individual do? They become withdrawn, submissive, quiet. They stop competing. They stop challenging. They shrink. In animals, biologists have a name for this. They call it the involuntary subordinate strategy. When a lower-ranked animal loses a fight for dominance, its behavior collapses into something that looks eerily, unmistakably like human depression. Low energy, social withdrawal, loss of appetite, zero interest in the things it wanted before. And in the ancient dangerous logic of the group, that collapse was protective. It signaled surrender. It said, "Hey, I'm not a threat. Please don't destroy me." It kept the loser alive long enough to recover, drop back, and perhaps try again another day. So both of these theories are pointing at the same unsettling conclusion. The machinery of depression is not new. It is deeply, powerfully ancient. Your ancestors almost certainly had the exact same neural equipment you carry around today, which seems to answer our question. Yes, ancient humans could suffer from depression. Except it's not that simple, because here's where the story takes a genuine turn. If the wiring is ancient and every human population has it, then depression rates should be roughly the same everywhere, across all times and all ways of living, but they're not. And that single fact cracks the whole story wide open. Because when researchers went looking at societies that still live something close to the ancestral way, small-scale hunter-gatherer and forager communities, they found something that stunned them. Rates of clinical depression that were dramatically, sometimes almost impossibly, lower than in the modern industrialized world. One of the most famous examples comes from an anthropologist studying the Kaluli people of Papua New Guinea. He was specifically looking for depression. He examined over 2,000 people, and he found almost nothing that resembled the crippling, persistent, hopeless depression that fills clinics in wealthy nations. It was, for all practical purposes, nearly absent. Now sit with the paradox. The genetic hardware for depression is ancient and universal, but the disease itself, the chronic, life-destroying version, seems to explode in the modern world and stay quiet in the ancestral one. So what changed? Not the brain. The brain is the same. What changed is everything around it. This is the idea that ties the whole story together. It's called the mismatch. Your brain, your stress response, your entire emotional operating system was fine-tuned over hundreds of thousands of years for one specific environment. Small tight-knit groups where everyone knew you. Constant physical movement, real sunlight, all day, every day. Deep, uninterrupted darkness at night. Meaningful daily purpose. Immediate social support the instant something went wrong. That was the world the machinery was built for. Now look at the world we actually live in. We are more connected than any humans in history and lonelier than any humans in history at the same time. We sit still for most of our waking hours. We barely see the sun. We stare into artificial light until midnight and wreck the sleep our brains depend on. We compare ourselves not to 30 people in our band, but to millions of strangers online, most of them presenting a highlighted fantasy of their lives. We experience social defeat constantly, in tiny doses, all day long, and we almost never get the resolution, the recovery, the community that the ancient version of the mechanism was designed to lead back toward. And that might be the key. In the ancestral world, low mood had an exit. You lost status, you withdrew, you recovered, the group folded you back in, the feeling lifted. It was a temporary state with a built-in reset. The problem with modern world isn't that we invented depression, it's that we invented a life that switches the mechanism on and then never lets it switch back off. We took an ancient, temporary, protective response and trapped people inside it with no way out. The trigger jams. The fog never clears. The tool becomes the trap. So, did ancient humans suffer from depression? The honest answer is layered. And it's more interesting than a simple yes or no. They absolutely felt the machinery. They grieved, they felt defeat, they withdrew and went quiet after loss exactly the way we do. Because the wiring is shared. But the chronic, hopeless, months-long, life-swallowing depression that we know today, that version seems to be, at least in part, a product of the world we built, not the brain we inherited, which leaves us with the thought that is both heavy and strangely hopeful. If depression were purely a broken brain, there would be little we could do but wait for it to break. But if a large part of a mismatch, the mechanism firing in the wrong environment, then the environment is something we can change. Sunlight, movement, exercise, sleep, real connection with real people. That perhaps is the most important thing. Real connection with real people. And purpose in life. None of it is a cure, but all of it is the world your brain was actually built to live in. Your ancestors carried the same ancient machinery you do. They just lived in it the way it was made for. Maybe the real question isn't why we feel this way. Maybe it's why we built a world that keeps the feeling from ending.